We're learning Hilchos Avos Yom Kippurim Halacha Zayin. B'mei Ba'ashenu Tzotz Aminus B'Yisrael. At the time of the second Commonwealth, the second Beis Hamikdash, that was the time that we began to have people who were heretics in Yisrael. We'll go down to the Pirush at the bottom of the page. V'yotzu Hatzdoikin Mehero Yevedu, and it began the sect which is called Tzdoikim today, and may they quickly be lost. Since the Rambam mentions this group, and he says, may they quickly be lost, perish, because this is the rule. That when you mention a tzaddik, you should mention that he should be blessed. And if you mention a Rosh's name, you should say it should rot. Now, that's a posik. And when you mention the tzaddikim, you bless them. When you Rishayim, you do the opposite. And the tzaddikim are evil because they don't believe in the oral tradition. The Rambam in Pirush HaMishnayos, when he explains the Mishnah, says, how did they come about? Antignus ish Sukkoi hayu shnei talmidim. Antignus ish Sukkoi is mentioned in Perik, had two talmidim. One, his name was Tzodok, and the second one was called Baisus. When they heard their Rebbe say, do not serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in order to receive reward, but rather like slaves who will not receive reward, they understood from him that the person will ultimately not receive reward, and therefore they didn't want to keep the Torah. And they didn't understand that his intent was not that you won't receive reward. Everyone ultimately that's part of belief of Schar V'Onish, but rather they thought they wouldn't receive a reward at all, and therefore they decided to leave Klal Yisrael, because somebody who doesn't believe in Torah from Min Hashamayim and the oral tradition is outside of the Klal Yisrael. In every one of these disciples, there was a group that gathered around them. And the Chacham gave them the name. The groups were called according to the leaders. Tzedokim after Tzodok, or Baisusim after Baisus. And they couldn't tell their Talmidim what their reason was, because if they would say that the entire oral tradition was wrong, then they would be totally up a creek. Nobody would believe them. Therefore, they said to their group that he believes in Torah. He disagrees on some of the things that Chacham want to say, as if the Chacham words were of their own making, and therefore they could influence their group to explain the Torah according to how they wanted to explain it. This was in order to not have to keep certain mitzvahs, especially not the edicts and the enactments. And so we find they began to be lenient what they wanted to be lenient, and be stringent about what they wanted to be stringent. They chose their own religion because in actuality, they did not believe neither in Torah Shabbat, nor written Torah, nor the oral Torah. Now these evil groups are to be found in the times of the Rambam in Egypt. When he mentions them, he calls them the Karaim, or the Karaites. That the Chacham called Tzdokim and Baisusim, they are today called the Karaites. They are those who began to disagree on the oral tradition, explain the posuk according to what they understood it. In fact, many times the opposite of what it says in the Torah. You shall do as the rabbis instruct you, and the judgment which they shall tell you. Do not stray from their words, that they will tell you right or left. And therefore, the Tzaddikim would say that the Torah of Yom Kippurim, for instance, you would have to put on the fire before you went in, because the pasuk says, "Ki be'onanei roeh ala kaporos," and they interpret it to mean that with a cloud you should be seen, as opposed to going in and then lighting it. This is what the Rambam therefore writes: "She'einon Ma'aminim b'Torah Sheba'al Peh. They do not believe in Torah Sheba'al Peh. In the oral tradition, they would say that the incense of Yom Kippur you would place manichan oisei ala eish beheichol. You would put it on the fire already in the outer room, outside of the chutz leperches, outside of the curtain. When it started to go up the smoke, they would go inside into the Holy of Holies. The reason because they said what it says, I shall be seen on the kaparas with the cloud. Amru, they said, Kihu ananakteres. The cloud is referring to the cloud of incense. Piashmuel amdu chachomim, and the chachomim learned that oral tradition, she'ein, you don't noisin akteres, you don't put the incense on. Ela b'kodesh hakadoshim lefnei orein. Only once you have reached the Holy of Holies at the place where the Aron was, and he would put it on. As it's Shenema, because it says in Vayikra, Hashem, that you place the incense on the fire when you're in front of Hashem, meaning inside, when you're in front of Kodesh HaKadoshim. What does the pasuk Ki be'onan eiroya lakaporis mean? That they meant that that's the cloud of the incense. It means that you put into the Ketores a certain ingredient which is called Mala Oshon, which causes the fire to go up straight. And then it would spread out across the room, and then come down. And that's how we find in Yuma 19b, that this was the interpretation of the Tzedakah. Ulefi, and since Shoyachoshem by Hasheni, they were afraid in the second Beis HaMikdash, they had Tzedakah then, Shema Kohen Gadol Zenoit Letzad Minas, maybe this Kohen Gadol is among that group. They would make them swear on Erev Yom Kippur and tell them, Ishi Kohen Gadol, our master the Kohen Gadol, Oni Anu Shliachoi Bezdin, we are the agents of Bezdin. And you are our agent. Ushliach Bezdin, and the Shliach of the Bezdin. Mashbian Onu, we make you take an oath by the name of the Lord who left his name on this house, meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shaloi tishane dova, you should not change anything, which we told him. And they did it in this language, so that he should do it properly, as the oral tradition was accepted. He turns and cries on the fact that they thought he might be a heretic, and they separate themselves and cry because they were choshed in somebody that we don't know what his actions were. Maybe he had no intent to do anything wrong. We find this in the Mishnah Yuma 18b, that they gave him Ziknei Bezdin, as we learned earlier, that taught him to do the avodah, and they would give him over to the elders of the Kahuna, of the priesthood. And Rashi says they would teach him how to do the Ketores, which you have to do with the fistful, as it says in Vayikra, and he will take a full fire pan of coals from the Mizbeach before Hashem, and a full fistful of incense, which are very fine spices, and he would bring them before the curtain. The Gemara explains that the service of taking the fistful was one of the most difficult in the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore they had to teach him how to do it to get the correct amount. It's the only item that had no set measure to it. It was according to the size of the hands of the Kohen Gadol, and then he had to put it into a kaf. Those Ziknei Kuna, they were from Beis Haftinas, were the people that made the Ketores. Furthermore, it says in the Mishnah that they gave him an oath, and then they went away. How did they make him swear? So they said to him, as we find here, we, our master, the Kohen Gadol, we are the shluchim, the agents of Bezdin. You're the shluchim, our agents and the agents of Bezdin. We make you take an oath by the name of he who made his presence in this house, that you shall not change anything from what we told you. Yuma 19b explains the Lashon We are Shluchei Bezdin, you are our agent, the agent of Bezdin. Doesn't mean that he's their agent to do the avodah, because the Kohanim do their own avodah. And also the Kohen Gadol and Yom Kippurim are always considered the agents of Hashem, not our agents. Because something that we can't do, no one, even the Kohanim can't do the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash on Yom Kippur. The regular Kohen, only the Kohen Gadol cannot make a shliach. But it really means that you are an agent of Hashem. Therefore, the Gemara says the intent is that if you're going to trick us with a shvua, the language is made that you don't say the shvua is relevant to what I'm thinking, but it's relevant to what we're thinking and intending it to mean, not according to your interpretation. This is the intent of the Rambam, that he says that we say to him, we are the agents of Bezdin, and you are our agent, that we make him swear on our conditions. The Gemara explains that the Kohen Gadol would cry because they made an assumption against him, and they cried because they don't know for sure that he's a heretic. And that's what we find in the Payet, which we say in the Seder Avodah liturgy of Musaf of Yom Kippur, because they suspected someone that his actions are hidden, meaning we don't know what he's thinking of doing. Why do they cry? Because there's an issa it's forbidden to suspect someone, like Rabbi Shua ben Levi says in Yuma 19b, that whoever suspects someone who's kosher will find his body will be punished. And that's, they had to do so because they were obligated to do so. They cried sort of to repent on what they did, that they didn't do it to suspect him as much as it was their obligation. The Pirush HaMishnayos, in his explanation on the Mishnah, the Rambam says it's forbidden to suspect or to think something bad about a person that we don't know for sure, but only for necessity. And here there was a necessity to be sure that he should do the work as with Ikteres. Therefore, without any choice, they would suspect him and make him swear. Rabbi Akiva Eiger on this Mishnah cites the Mayim Chaim, who questions a kushya on the Rambam. What does it help to make the Kohen swear? Maybe he's a Zdoiki. What are they making him swear? He should do it properly. And therefore, since they're making a mistake in how to explain it, he assumes that he's doing it properly. As we find in Yuma 19b, that there was a Tzaddoki that actually did it the way the Tzaddokim explained him to do it. He brought in the Torahs, he put it on outside, and I'm just mentioning that you should know that no one was present at the time that the Kohen Gadol went into the Heichel. They couldn't see what he was doing. When he went out, he was very happy that he did it the way the Tzaddokim believe in it. And his father told him, he told it to his father, and his father told him, my son, even though we're Tzaddokim, we're afraid of the Perushim. In other words, we're afraid maybe they're right. So the Kohen Tzaddoki said, I was always worried, I always wanted to do it the right way. And now I did it properly. Now I shouldn't do it. He was happy, and the Gemara cites it was just a few days, and that Kohen died, and he was in the trash, and there were worms coming out of his nostrils. And some say that it happened immediately. That as soon as he left Kodesh HaKadoshim, he died because of Chia learned that they heard a loud voice in the Azorah. The Malach came and struck him on his face. The Kohanim went in to find him, and they found that the form of a foot of a calf between his shoulder blades, and that's where the Malach struck him. As we find in Yechezkel 1:7, that the feet of a Malach are straight, and they have their footstep is that of a calf. and this is what they saw. In any case, we see that even though you make him swear, they don't take any credit, don't give any credence to this oath other than what they believe in. So what does it help the swearing? And if you'll say that they only did it after this action took place, so the question comes: if he doesn't believe, if he believes something else, then he won't change his mind. The Pri Chodesh gives three answers. First of all, that they were Kahanim. The oath itself is a very strong thing, and therefore they wouldn't do it, so they're not to swear falsely. And in Pri Chodesh brings proof from a Gemara in Yuma 19a that Lishkas Pahedlin, that there the Kohen Gadol would be separated for 7 days, and Lishkas Beis Haftinos, where they made him swear, weren't next to each other. Why did they cause him to go the entire distance across the courtyard? If he's a tzedaiking, he would understand that it's like a walk to a hangman's noose. He's walking, he has to think about what he knows he's going for a reason, that they're going to make him swear, and he should realize the severity of the oath. The Pri Megadim is another answer that the tzedaikim actually admit that you can do it the other way as well, and therefore they just felt that this was the more relevant interpretation, even though it's permissible the other way, so why should they go against the oath? The third answer is that Kohen that's mentioned in the Gemara was an idiot, and he went against the oath to show that the tzedaikim are right and the Perushim are wrong. But every Kohen that they made him swear, even if it was a tzedaikim, would usually separate himself because of the oath. Save Avodas Yisrael, which is when he tells you about the Avodah in Yuma, he cites the first teretz of Chaim Abulafia, who mentions in his Sefer Yashish Yankiv on Yuma that the Chachamim would say Ha'odam B'Shvur, that when the Chachamim said that a person is liable for his oath, that's only if you didn't force him. If you force him to swear, he's not punished. But it's doikim that they don't believe in Torah Sh'val Peh, don't believe in this drash, and therefore they believe any oath that you take, even if it's against your thoughts, has to be kept, because that's the logic that they use, and they can't use a logic to say, well, we agree with the Perushim that onus doesn't have to do the oath, and we disagree with them on other things. Avodas Yisrael himself, he explains that there's a rule on Hilchos Shvua. When you make a Shvua in general, that the Shvua has many things in it. Even if part of the Shvua is against something from the Torah, since they are according to the Torah part of it, therefore it takes effect on everything. Thus, they would tell them, like the Mishnah said, and the Rambam says, we may give you an oath, make you take an oath, that you shall not change anything from what we said to you. And they would not make him swear on the service of the G'dayros, but everything the Kohen Gadol needs to do on Yom Kippur. Included in this were things that the tzedaikim admit with them, and therefore the shvur took place, even though on those things which they disagree, and therefore it had to be done according to the way the Chachamim explained it, and this is why the oath was given.